Ananya Gummadi.
Hi, my name is Vedika Kothari.
And I'm Kameela Osman. I'm a registered social worker.
That sounds really
Wonderful. So the holidays are a stressful time, and we know they're coming up. So how do you personally de-stress?
During the holiday season and throughout this pandemic, my big thing is just being really kind to myself and giving myself grace. And that's what I work with a lot of people who I'm supporting through my work to do, to just give themselves an extra bit of grace and be kind to themselves when they're being, a lot of our own pressure is our own self-expectations. So just checking our self-expectations and making sure we aren't being hard on ourselves.
So since the holidays are coming near and we are going to spend some time with our family, how do you maintain these healthy relationships with people you might not see as often, especially due to the pandemic when we aren't able to see our friends as often? How do you maintain those healthy relationships?
Mm-hmm. A big thing is knowing what are your boundaries. So whether it's with family or friends, being willing to say no when you just don't have the energy or the capacity, knowing what you're comfortable with and knowing when you can say no, knowing that you have the right to say no to certain things. There might be certain occasions or gatherings that you feel obligated to go to, even though you may not necessarily want to. So times where that no is kind of a maybe. And even when you have to say maybe, or when you're finding yourself pressured into choosing a maybe because it works for you, it's an easier path. It's figuring out, what kind of compromise can you make with yourself? So if I need to show up for that thing, let's say my sister's celebration, and I feel like I don't have the energy to go, but I really want to be there, and that's my choice, I want to be there. I might make a compromise with myself so that when I come home, that's going to be my time. Or let's say the Sunday, that's just my time. So I'm going to show up for that thing, but I'm going to also have something that's scheduled for me. I'm going to show up to that thing, but I'm going to set my mindset up. So if there's people that, their comments rub me the wrong way, or I don't enjoy their company, I might even, have a partner in crime at that event. So I might say to my best friend, if they're there, or a favorite cousin, like if this uncle is speaking to me and I don't want to, if he's being really annoying, I'm going to have a signal, or I'm going to, strike up some sort of you interrupt and redirect me. So having that kind of boundary setting, even getting a partner involved in it, can help.
I did notice that you talked about people that rubbed you the wrong way. Can you talk a little bit more about how you can deal with toxic relationships around the holidays?
Mm-hmm. So if you know ahead of time there are people that generally say things to you that make you feel bad, or that you aren't happy, you don't feel comfortable in their presence, again, pre-planning does help. So if you can ask someone that you do trust to be there to almost help create that buffer for you, sometimes that can help. Pre-planning, what are some of the things that you want to say when they say their typical things? Often why you're uncomfortable when that person comes to mind. So either they're making a comment about school, or a comment about weight, or picking on you in some way that makes you feel uncomfortable. So pre-planning that thing that you want to say can help, because in the moment when that person says, whenever someone's saying something that's kind of critical in a moment, it can make us feel like lost for words. And then later, maybe not in that moment, but the next day, we're holding on to that moment as, why didn't I say this thing? Why did I let that person say that to me? I didn't really like that moment. And we're kind of ruminating, thinking it over and over. Meanwhile, that person has gone on with their life and isn't thinking of that. So us pre-planning what we want to say can help. The other thing is knowing you have an out. So if you don't want to be there in that moment and tolerate that conversation, you can make, whether it's a fib, I've got to go to the bathroom, or I've got to, help my mom with this, I've got to do something. Making a fib in that moment, making yourself unavailable, is also an out. And like I said, also having a partner in it can also help. So, if that uncle is speaking to me, or an aunt, or whoever, and I'm giving my, my favorite cousin or my sister kind of that signal, to call them over and kind of interrupt, take some of the heat off of me, that can help too.
So what you said about friendships and the crazy uncles are is completely perfect. We can focus a bit more on the holidays because sometimes we can see that you might not spend as much time with your significant other while spending time with your family, and how that might affect the relationship. And also more general, if you can go into that.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you think of other thoughts while I'm speaking, feel free to ask me, like follow up. But in terms of the holidays and sharing time, a big thing is knowing that in any healthy relationship, you're going to, like, you have the right to spend time with your own family. You have the right to spend time doing things that you want to do. And in a healthy relationship, that isn't going to jeopardize the relationship. That shouldn't make your partner feel insecure. If you have a secure relationship, you spending time doing something that you want to do, or them spending time doing something that they want to do, or even some of those things you may not want to do, but because, you know, obligations and feeling like you want to show up, like I said, that example of like a sister's celebration or something like Christmas Day, generally we aren't spending that with our partner's family unless we're in a more serious relationship. And so it's going to be understood that those times is going to be split. And like I said before, with boundaries, you can come up with some sort of compromise or compensation. So I'm not going to spend Christmas Day with you, but maybe the day after New Year's, I'm going to be spending with you. Or maybe, you know, on the weekend or another day, I'm going to spend some time with you. And like I said, in a healthy relationship, there's going to be space for that. And there should be understanding that we each have our separate lives. We each have obligations that we have to, you know, kind of prioritize in our life, that our whole life cannot just be our partner just because we're partners.
Absolutely. As you said, communication and understanding is key, but our audience is mostly high schoolers and young adults, and sometimes we don't really understand how the definition of a healthy relationship. So can you maybe talk a little bit about that and what we should look for?
Yeah. So in an unhealthy relationship, you know, there's often like a lack of trust. So when you say you're going to an aunt's house or an uncle's house, or, you know, a family obligation, when there is that intense jealousy, that's often a flag, or that questioning, even things like, I think I touched on the idea of put downs from aunts and uncles, but if our partner is the person putting us down, criticizing us, you know, that kind of behavior are definite flags and shouldn't be happening in a healthy relationships. Our relationships should be a safe space, a space that makes us feel good. When you think about what love is, it's not that there aren't trying times in love, but the trying times shouldn't be because our partner is being awful to us. There are things that we can disagree on that naturally come up in relationships, where to go for dinner or what you want to do on the weekend, you know. And yes, time management is a thing that happens in a lot of relationships. So how much time are you spending doing different activities versus spending time together? But that conversation should have a healthy quality to it. It should leave room for you know, understanding each other, not criticism on either side, put downs, that sort of just name calling, yelling, tone of voice, all of that are signs of more of a controlling, abusive relationship rather than one that's based in equality. So both partners should be able to have their say, have their opinion without feeling bad for their opinion. This is just my perspective, and you're sharing that with your partner with the understanding that you're going to be open to hearing their perspective and their thoughts and feelings without doing the same thing, without berating them or criticizing them for the way that they're thinking.
Go ahead, Vedika.
Okay, that sounds completely amazing, and it is so true. But, not but, let's try to move on to toxicity in school. Have you ever experienced toxic behaviors in school, and could you give some examples on that?
Like from friendships. I'm trying to remember my high school days. I'm sure I have. it does come up. I would say it's more around probably intimate relationships and yes, friendships. I think, with the girlfriends, there's certainly like the mean girl thing that can happen, and even jealousy within, and jealousy and control. I think we touched on it in terms of intimate relationship, but also in terms of our girlfriends. So if we have that best friend, how jealousy can come up with that, not wanting to share our best friend, or if you had, I certainly had a group of, like a core group of friends, and at times those kinds of things would come up when one person wasn't feeling included or as part of it, or life events were happening to them and they couldn't be part of it the same way. I remember, even my granddad passing away in high school, and how that made me feel kind of isolated from my friends because I went away. I'm not from Canada, so I went back home for a while, and then, coming back and feeling like I don't know how to find my footing in that time. And so I think a lot of it comes back to, just like we're saying with intimate relationships, our friendships are a different form of intimate relationship. So the key pieces are communicating, and communicating in a healthy way. So the more open you are about what you're thinking, what you're feeling, the better people are able to respond to that. But the other piece to that is knowing that you have the rights to boundaries. So if someone isn't respecting what you have to share, you have the right to say, you know what, I don't like how this conversation is going. I don't want to participate in this right now. Or maybe we should talk about it, when we're feeling more calm. I know that I'm feeling upset in this moment. So not feeling like you have to solve every issue in one moment. You always have time. And if ever you're the one, because we're all human, if ever you're the one that, messes up, says something that you wish you didn't say, you can always circle back. So the best thing you can do when you do something like that is to own it and say, you know what, I think I really misspoke yesterday, or I recognize in thinking about it, I shouldn't have said that. I'm really sorry. And that can make, it can save a friendship that could go, a different way. You don't have to lose your friends over one argument.
Especially with females in general, I think there is this sort of competition.
Mhm.
Um, do you believe in it? And if you do, can you give us some examples or some tips on it?
Especially in high school, and I don't think it really changes as you grow. There is that sort of competition that is there. I think it happens on a different level with males and their friendships. The idea in general, whether it's within the same gender, or male and female, the idea is comparing our lives to others and comparing ourselves to others, and feeling less than because someone has a skill set that we don't have, or they have a quality or a characteristic that we don't have. The main thing when we are falling into that competition is like just pulling ourselves out of that and coming back to gratitude of what we know, that comparing ourselves to others, whether it's on social media to our friends, or social media to people we don't even know, that comparing really highlights a lacking. And there's no way for us to feel good when we're just focusing on what we don't have in our life. So whether it's a partner that we want that we don't have, or a certain way that we want to look that we're focusing on that we don't look in that way, or a family life that we're kind of coveting or wanting, whatever it is, that when we're focusing on that lacking, we're going to feel hopeless, we're going to feel defeated, we're going to feel not good about where we are and who we are. So coming back to what we know about ourselves can help. An activity I actually do for myself when I'm feeling kind of low is to take a piece of paper, split it in half, and I call it an inventory of self. And I will put down all the negative thoughts on one side, everything I'm thinking, everything I'm feeling, the good and the bad of it. So I'm giving it some space for what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. And then on the other side, it's the inventory. So I'll come back to what I know about me, who I am, what are my skills, what are my strengths, what are my resiliencies, the things that I've survived and overcome, what my best friend would say about me, what my mom would say about me. So really, what is that inventory of who I am? And then towards the bottom there on that inventory is that really important piece of what's in my capacity. So what are the things I'm capable of? On a really low day, I may not be able to think of all of those strengths and all the good stuff, but in any moment, we all have capacity, things that we're able to do, whether it's, I can make my best friend smile, or I can make a stranger smile. I can, do something nice for a random person. We all have have capacity, and that just kind of balances it out. So as bad as the day is, as much as we think our lives are lacking and we might feel like, down on ourselves in that compare and despair lens, we know we have stuff, we know who we are matters, and we can bring ourselves back and balance out that feeling in some way.
I think that is such a great idea, such a great activity, and that all viewers should be trying that right now whenever they have a bad day. So right now my dog is barking. That leads me to my next question. Do you have any pets, and do they help you de-stress, or do you have siblings? What do you do to de-stress?
I don't have pets. I had pets when I was younger, but I don't have pets right now. I would love a cat one day, but my husband's allergic, so I can't have one. I have kids, so I have 2 kids, and that's my favorite thing to de-stress. It's one of those things where on one hand it's a stressor, and on another hand it's not. So I have really young kids, so that's why sometimes it's a stressor. They don't always do what you want them to do and have bad days themselves. But just watching them play and being young, seeing them like discover the world in their own eyes, snuggling up and reading a book together, those are the things that make me feel good. For my own time of self-care, I certainly cultivate that practice too. It's usually in the morning while everyone's asleep. I'm having, a cup of something warm, whether it's a tea or a coffee to myself. In the winter months, I love hot chocolate with marshmallows. And so just watching outside with, like, I call it like a mindful moment. So just taking notice of this present moment and holding on to it. And you can be surprised at how long a minute can feel when you're just slowing down for that minute. So not doing anything, not working on anything, not multitasking. So no, TV in the background, just having that, few moments to myself can make the difference between a good day and a bad day. And so even with kids, I cultivate that practice of, in the morning, mom needs her coffee first. Mom's gonna, they know that I take that time for myself, and generally I'll try to have that before everyone's up and buzzing. And, if I don't get it in the morning, I make sure I get it in the evening. That time for yourself can make a difference.
I think it's amazing that you still manage to find time for yourself, even with 2 little kids at home. Wait, if you don't mind me asking, how old are they?
They're 5 and 3.
Oh, that's adorable. So I do think that since we're talking about your kids, the feelings of little kids are usually discarded as being like unimportant because because they're little and they can't really they don't really know much about the world. How do you deal with that at home with your kids or any that comes to you with this?
Yeah, it's I don't know if my kids are different or it's like a different day and age that the kids are growing up. I certainly had that feeling growing up where my feelings didn't matter. I grew up with that motto of kids are to be seen and not heard. So I didn't really have opportunities to speak up at family gatherings and things. Kids were kind of carted off in a different corner and weren't allowed to speak up. Whereas my kids, and I think part of being a therapist, they're used to that language of feeling, so very quickly learned. They tell you when I'm angry. They say, at 3 and 5, they will say when they're upset, when they're sad. Angry and sad are a big one. And when they're happy, they're generally just happy, but the negative emotions are ones that they commonly voice. And again, because of my lens as a therapist, I lean into those emotions and give them the space for that. We try to talk things out. When they're upset, the big thing, and I mean, even us as an adult, when we're upset, the first thing before we try to respond to the emotion, it's just self-soothing, giving them some comfort. So when they're angry, when they're upset, whether it's a hug or giving them some space, taking them away from the thing that's making them angry. And again, I do that for myself when I'm feeling certain ways. So walking away from the thing that's upsetting me, doing something comforting if I'm feeling anxious. So calming the emotion before I think about what am I going to do about it. And it's the same thing I try to teach them, to calm themselves first and then get to a place of, okay, now what am I going to do? What can I do given the given situation?
That sounds great. And I think that not only should that be applied to children, but also to high schoolers, college students, and adults as well. Just calming down, assessing the situation, and then acting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually a great tool in terms of, parenting. And I know that's not your audience, but to just know that when we want someone else to calm down, the greatest thing that we can do is calm ourselves down. So if my 3-year-old is having a tantrum, and she can at times, if I were to get worked up because of that, that's not going to help her. That's probably going to heighten her emotions. Or even if I think about my partner, if he's upset and I get upset because he's upset, that's not going to make a healthy situation. But if I'm able to stay calm or regulate myself, so do something to stay calm, whether it's deep breaths or a grounding strategy, something for me, that's going to help him lean into my calm. It's like I'm sharing my calm instead of us both working off of each other and getting heightened.
That sounds great. And I think that is bringing us to the end of this interview. We had such a great time speaking with you today. Do you have any last thoughts, any last questions for us?
Before we conclude, I do have a question. What inspired you to become a therapist?
Yeah, so certainly my own lived experience. When I got into social work, I wasn't necessarily thinking just doing therapy, but it kind of unfolded that way. So, like I said, not being born here and that sort of thing, my own life challenges in my childhood, and then certainly along the way throughout life, just led me to wanting to be there for other people in their time of struggle and need.
That is so amazing. Thank you so much once again.
You're welcome. Take care, guys.
You too.
Bye.